This is Shamseddiin Nelson with the oral presentation for my senior thesis entitled The Motivation Behind Cro-Magnon Parietal Art. The presentation is divided into two parts. The first part will define Cro-Magnon man and explain a bit about their parietal art, while the second part will introduce us to some of the theories that seek to explain the motivation behind the creation of this art. Most simply put, Cro-Magnon man refers to Homo sapiens sapiens living in Western Europe during the Upper Paleolithic era. As you can see in the bottom right corner of this chart, Homo sapiens is the most modern evolution of humans. This means that, from a biological perspective, Cro-Magnon man had the same cognitive and physical potentials as modern man, who is also Homo sapiens sapiens. This map shows all the cave locations in which Cro-Magnon parietal art has been found. As you can see, it is mostly localized in the geographic region that is now southern France and northern Spain. The Upper Paleolithic era constitutes a huge swatch of time, over 35,000 years. It is amazing to note that throughout this time, Cro-Magnon parietal art did not experience any significant stylistic changes. Even the great ancient Egyptian and Roman civilizations did not have an artistic tradition that was perpetuated unchanged for more than arguably a couple thousand years. However, when we take parietal art created in the beginning of the Upper Paleolithic and compare it to that created closer to the end, tens of thousands of years apart, we find that stylistically they are almost identical. They are also identical in conventions for subject matter as well as the locations for these parietal works. Stylistically, we find three general conventions throughout Cro-Magnon parietal art. These are an emphasis on outline, in that they spent a great deal of effort in detail outlining the forms accurately, while spending considerably less attention on the interior details and forms. Also, the subjects are almost always drawn in profile, never head-on. And third, there is a great deal of overlapping forms. In this example, called Crossed Bison from the caves of Lascaux, we can see all three of these stylistic conventions. First, an emphasis on outline. As you can see, careful attention has been paid to create a very realistic outline for these bisons. However, the interiors have been shaded almost completely black. Second, these bison, like all the other animals in the cave, are painted in profile. And third, there is clear evidence of use of overlapping forms, both in the back legs of each bison, as well as the left bison overlapping the right. The second major similarity in Cro-Magnon parietal art is similarity in subject matter. The subjects are almost exclusively animals, and mammalian animals at that. There are very, very few humans depicted, and the ones that are not ordinary humans. And there are no natural elements such as trees, mountains, or even a ground line for the animals to stand on depicted. The example that I've chosen to show here actually breaks many of these conventions, and is one of the few that does. For instance, it shows a non-mammalian animal, the bird. However, this isn't a living bird as all the other animals seem to be, but rather an ornament on a staff. There is also a human depicted here, or at least a humanoid figure. However, this humanoid has a bird-like head. This is always the case with humanoid figures found in Cro-Magnon parietal art, as they are either mixed with animals, incomplete, or have sharp sticks pointing out of them. Another interesting thing about this panel is its location. It is called the Shaft of the Dead Man panel due to its subject matter, but also due to the very small shaft that it was painted at the bottom of, in the caves of Lascaux. The location of these parietal works is the final similarity that binds them together as one artistic tradition. They are found in dark cave locations, and it seems that they were not arbitrarily placed, as there were some walls left completely bare in lieu of other, more difficult to reach walls in many caves. This image shows the entrance to the cave of Chauvet on the left side here. As you can see, most of the parietal artworks were created in recesses off to the side of the cave, such as the Galerie des Référés and Recess of the Bears, as well as some in the Brunel chamber. However, the entrance chamber area is largely devoid of any parietal works. The cave system also moves upwards out of the picture frame, where there are tens of other cave galleries. All of these galleries share in common that they are beyond the reach of natural daylight.